Quick question. When you hear passive income, what do you picture? Be honest. Is it something like laptop on the beach, a couple notifications rolling in, and you're basically done forever? Yeah, that's the ad, not the reality. Real passive income is more like owning a dog, not a houseplant. It can absolutely make your life better, but you can't just forget it exists and expect everything to go fine. Stuff breaks, markets dip, tenants move, dividends get cut. And if your whole life depends on those checks showing up, that's not freedom. That's a fragile setup. Because here's the truth. If you build this wrong, the cost isn't just money. The cost is your options, your peace of mind, your ability to say, nope, I'm out, and actually mean it. So stay with me, because we're about to run the math, call out the traps, and talk about the one part people never plan for, the part that makes someone with a fat portfolio still feel broke when it's time to buy a coffee. Here's what we're doing today. We're going to break this down into real-world terms, no fluff, no fantasy. First, we'll run the math so you know what living off passive income actually costs. Then we'll talk about the two main ways people do it, the cash flow route and the portfolio withdrawal route, because they're not the same game. And then we're getting into the part almost nobody warned you about, because the biggest trap isn't always the market, it's not always inflation. Sometimes the trap is you. What happens to your decisions, your spending, and your anxiety once your paycheck disappears? So if you're into practical money breakdowns that don't treat you like a kid, hit subscribe. Let's get into it. All right, when people say passive income, here's the simplest definition. It means your money is covering your life, so you're not forced to clock in just to pay bills. And there are basically two ways this usually works. Bucket number one is cash flow. That's money that shows up without you selling anything, like rent from real estate, dividends from stocks, or royalties from something you created. Bucket number two is total return. That's when your investments grow over time and you live by selling a small piece of the portfolio each year, kind of like taking slices off a big loaf instead of only eating the crumbs that fall off. People online argue about which is better, like it's a team sport. But most people who actually make this work long-term, they don't pick a side, they blend the two. Now let's talk about the part everyone wants, the number. How much do you actually need to live off investments without a paycheck? Most people start with a simple rule of thumb. Take what you spend in a year and multiply it by a big number. That gives you a rough target portfolio. Not perfect, but it gets you in the right zip code. So if your lifestyle costs around $40,000 a year, that usually points to about $1 million-ish invested. If you spend around $80,000 a year, now you're talking closer to $2 million-ish. And I know those numbers sound either exciting or terrifying depending on where you are right now. But here's the key thing. This is not a promise. It's not a magic formula. It's a guideline based on what markets have done in the past. And real life does not always cooperate with neat little formulas. The reason people love this math is because it's simple. The reason people get burned by this math is because they treat it like a guarantee. Here's where things stop being cute and start being real. Problem number one, that safe withdrawal number can change. People talk about it like it's a law of physics, but it's not. It depends on what the market gives you, what inflation is doing, and what kind of portfolio you actually have. And the annoying part is, a tiny change in that percentage is not a tiny change in your life. If your plan works at one rate but falls apart at a slightly lower rate, that doesn't mean you need a little more money. It can mean you need a whole extra chunk of a portfolio just to support the same lifestyle. Problem number two, inflation. Your bills aren't going to politely stay the same for the next 10 or 20 years. Groceries creep up, insurance creeps up, utilities creep up, everything creeps up. And this is where a lot of people get fooled by safe income. If you lock yourself into income that doesn't grow, something that pays the same amount year after year, it can feel rock solid at first. And then, slowly, it starts squeezing you. Not because you messed up, but because the cost of living kept moving and your income didn't. So the math isn't just how much do I need, it's how much do I need with room for reality. This is where most people's brain goes first. I don't want to sell anything. I want checks that show up every month. Rent, dividends, royalties, simple. And I get it. Cash flow feels safer because it feels like you're living off the output without touching the engine. But here's the trap that catches people. Money coming in is not the same as money you get to keep. The rent you collect isn't your income, it's just the top line. Because real life starts taking its cut. Repairs, vacancies, property taxes, insurance, HOA fees, management fees, and then the fun surprise stuff like the water heater dying at the exact worst moment. Same idea with dividends. People see a payout and think, sweet, free money. But companies can cut dividends, markets move, and the price you paid matters a lot more than most people want to admit. And here's the part nobody puts in the passive income ads. If you manage cash flow assets yourself, you can end up with a passive plan that basically turns into a part-time job, just with different headaches. Now we need to talk about the monster in the room, the thing that can wreck a plan that looks perfect on paper. Because the biggest danger isn't what your investments earn on average, it's when those returns show up.
Here's what I mean in plain English. If you quit your job and the market drops hard right after, you're in trouble. Not because you did anything stupid, but because you're now pulling money out while everything is down. You're basically forced to sell the most shares at the worst prices just to pay regular life bills. And that's how a plan that should have worked over 30 years can fall apart in just a few years. This is why those average return calculators can be so misleading. They make investing look like a smooth, upward line. Real life isn't a straight line. It's bumps, dips, and sometimes a full-on drop, right when you least want it. So, how do people actually make this work without losing their minds when things go sideways? The answer, a cash buffer. Keep 1 to 3 years of living expenses in cash or safe short-term investments. The idea is simple. So when the market takes a dive, you don't have to sell stocks just to cover your rent or your groceries. You've got that cash buffer to protect you, so you can let your investments recover without panic. Now let's talk about the hybrid model that most successful people use. First, you've got your broad investing, the kind of growth engine that keeps you moving forward over the long run. Think of it as the backbone of your portfolio. Next, you add some cash flow assets, stuff that gives you steady, reliable income. This could be rental income, dividends, royalties, anything that's a bit more predictable and hands-off. And finally, the cash buffer. That's your safety net, the shock absorber, the one that keeps your plan from falling apart when life gets messy. Because here's the thing. Flexibility is the real superpower. It's not about having the biggest pile of cash. It's about being able to roll with the punches and adjust as life throws them your way. Here's where the real hidden trap comes into play: lifestyle creep. You hit your freedom number, the one you've been working toward for months or years, and then what happens? You start upgrading your life. You get that nicer car, that bigger house, you start traveling more, and suddenly that number you were aiming for isn't enough anymore. It's like the goalposts keep moving. Every time you hit a milestone, the bar gets raised just a little higher, and that's how you end up running on a treadmill, just a faster one. But there's another psychological trap that trips people up: the purpose problem. You see, work isn't just about the paycheck. It gives you structure, routine, a sense of meaning, even if you hated your job. Without it, things can feel empty, and the freedom you thought you'd love might start to feel a little weird. A week of doing nothing, amazing, but a month, a year, that's a whole different story. People start to miss the challenge, the feeling of doing something. Here's the truth. The goal isn't to do nothing. It's about having the freedom to do what you want, whether that's starting a business, volunteering, traveling, or just spending more time with family. The point is having control over your time, not just filling it with endless leisure. So, here's the bottom line. Yes, living on passive income is totally possible. But let's be clear, it's an ecosystem, not a one-time magic trick. You've got to balance your assets, plan for the unexpected, and keep your flexibility. There's no shortcut to freedom. It's about building a system that works for you long-term. Now, I want to hear from you. Are you team cash flow, team total return, or do you prefer a hybrid of both? And while we're at it, what's your monthly freedom number? How much do you need to live your life on your own terms? If you found this helpful, hit like so more people can see it, and subscribe for more practical money breakdowns that don't sugarcoat things. Next video, I'll show you a simple way to structure a portfolio that gives you both growth and stability, so you don't have to worry about market crashes or missing out on opportunities. See you in the next one.